You ever notice how sometimes you see three, completely separate news stories, but they're not separate at all? They're actually telling one single, much bigger story. Well, that's exactly what's happening right now with OpenAI, NVIDIA, and Atlassian. Each one has just made a massive move that, on its own, looks interesting, but when you put them together, whoa. They're all part of a huge power play, a fundamental shift in the AI industry towards this one core idea: sovereignty. So, to really get why these giants are making such dramatic moves, you have to understand this core tension at the heart of AI today. On one side, you've got the dream, right? This incredible, world changing technology with just endless possibility. But on the other side, you have the cold, hard reality. Building this stuff is insanely expensive, and for years, it's meant you are totally, completely dependent on one single company's hardware. And that imbalance, that's the spark for everything we're about to talk about. Okay, so before we can unpack the rebellions, we first need to understand the empire. You see, this entire AI revolution, this incredible gold rush that we are all living through, has been built on a very specific and frankly, very narrow foundation. One company, for a long time now, has effectively held all the keys to the kingdom. And yup, that company is NVIDIA. For years, they've had what is basically a monopoly on the specialized chips, the GPUs, that you absolutely need to train and run these big AI models. So if you're OpenAI or Google or Meta or really anyone trying to build cutting-edge AI, you had no choice. You had to buy mountains of hardware from NVIDIA. They weren't just another player in the gold rush, they were the only ones selling all the picks and shovels, and they got to set the price. And that brings us to our first major move. The company behind ChatGPT, arguably the biggest fire of AI chips on the entire planet, is making a really bold play to break free. And this isn't just some small business decision. This is a full-on declaration of hardware independence. This quote here, it just gets right to the heart of it. OpenAI wants to decouple its operational costs from NVIDIA's hardware margins. In plain English, they are sick and tired of their success being directly tied to how much NVIDIA feels like charging them. They want to control their own destiny and their own massive budget. And to do this, they're zeroing in on a specific type of chip called an inference chip. Now, look, if training a model is like sending it to college to learn everything there is to know, inference is the model actually doing its job out in the real world, answering your question, writing that code, reasoning through a problem. It's the engine that powers ChatGPT every single second, and it's where the real long-term costs pile up. So what's their solution? They're building their own. It's called Sovereign One. I mean, come on, that name tells you everything you need to know about their motivation, right? It's custom built with Broadcom, it's designed specifically for the kind of reasoning their models do, and the word on the street is it's already in production and performing even better than they hoped. This is step one in their breakaway. So, if you're NVIDIA and your biggest customer is basically trying to fire you by building their own hardware, how do you respond? You could try to fight them, or you could do something much, much smarter. You pivot and you fund an entirely new army of customers. People in the know are calling NVIDIA's strategy a preemptive strike. They see the writing on the wall. The biggest AI labs all want their own custom chips. So NVIDIA isn't just sitting back and waiting to react. They are proactively shaping the future to make sure their hardware stays the #1 platform for everybody else. And the scale of this bet is just staggering. We're not talking about a small venture fund here. NVIDIA is reportedly planning to pour $26 billion into the open source AI world. Let that sink in. That is a monumental investment designed to create a vibrant, thriving alternative to the closed, proprietary models from labs like OpenAI. The logic is actually brilliant. If OpenAI and Google are going to go off and build their own walled gardens with their own custom chips, fine. NVIDIA's new plan is to become the arsenal for the entire rest of the world. They will fund, support, and power the thousands of open source models and startups that will compete with those giants. By doing that, they make sure their hardware remains absolutely essential to the ecosystem as a whole. Okay, so this battle over the hardware, it's not happening in a vacuum. The shockwaves are traveling all the way up the stack to software companies, and it is forcing them to make radical bet-the-company changes just to survive what's coming. And that brings us to our third story, Atlassian. And this is not a theoretical shift. Atlassian, the company behind Jira and Confluence, tools so many of us use every day, recently cut over 1,600 jobs. But this wasn't just about cutting costs. It was a massive, painful reallocation of capital to fund a pivot towards an entirely new way of thinking about software. They're betting their entire future on something called agentic AI. And this is the next evolution. We're talking about autonomous AI systems that don't just help you use software, they can actually use the software for you. You just give it a high-level goal, and the agent figures out all the steps and gets it done on its own. This breaks it down perfectly. Phase 1 was us humans, clicking around in software like Jira. Phase 2, that's kind of where we are now, is AI assisting us, maybe suggesting a title for a ticket. But Phase 3, the future Atlassian is sprinting towards, is where an AI agent manages the entire workflow. It sees a bug report, creates the Jira ticket, assigns it, and follows it to completion, all without a human ever touching the interface. Atlassian knows that if they don't build this, someone else will, and their current products will become obsolete. It's a matter of survival. Okay, so let's tie these three threads together now. You've got OpenAI building its own chips. You have NVIDIA funding the entire open source world. You have Atlassian completely rebuilding for AI agents. These are not separate events. They're all skirmishes in a new and much larger war. And this right here is the main takeaway. The goal in AI is not just about building the smartest model anymore. The new power play is about vertical integration. It is about sovereignty. It's about controlling your own destiny by owning every single layer of the stack, from the custom silicon at the very bottom all the way to the autonomous software agents at the very top. This slide just lays it all out perfectly, doesn't it? Look at how each company is pivoting. OpenAI is going from relying on NVIDIA to building its own sovereign one chip. It's about cost control, sure, but it's really about independence. NVIDIA is shifting from selling to a few giants to funding the entire open source world to maintain its dominance. And Atlassian is moving from selling tools for humans to rebuilding its whole company for AI agents just to survive. Every single one is a play for sovereignty. And all of this brings us to one final critical question. As these tech titans race to build their own fully integrated sovereign AI stacks, and in doing so consolidate immense power from the silicon all the way up to the app, what happens to everyone else? What does that mean for the startups, for the independent developers, for all the businesses caught in between? That right there, that's the question that is going to define the next chapter of the entire AI revolution.